Let's take a look at how the markets in Zimbabwe fared for the day. And looking at the mining index, flat today, 74 points. And just looking at that for the week, down 1.9%. On the industrial front, we saw some buying on that end this week. In fact, the market or the overall index up 0.8%. And today, as you can see, a slight gain on the day. Let's delve into what's driving the markets. Anymore Taruvinga, Equities Analyst at Kingdom Financial Holdings, is our market watcher in Zimbabwe today. Anymore, thank you very much for joining us. So let's just sidestep the market for a second, because a key development this week has certainly been the gazetting and signing in of the new constitution. How are Zimbabweans feeling about this? I mean, what type of sentiment is there right now around that?
I think on the actual day of the signing itself, the media actually reported that the ministers and members of parliament that were present at the signing ceremony actually ululated and actually gave shouts of joy. It's quite a positive development for the country. Everyone has been looking forward to that constitution being put into place. If you remember, we started the constitution debate as far back as the year 2000, when we had the first draft actually being rejected. So it's a positive development for us, and the sentiment is quite positive. Both in the financial markets, we saw some activity inclined to that development.
Yeah. Let's just run through market performance this week, because we've got some, unfortunately, we've just lost Anymore there. Hopefully we'll get that line up and running. But what I was trying to say is certainly some divergent moves on the market, because the likes of CFI Holdings was up almost 60% this week. Masimba Holdings up 35%. Those two small caps, but certainly are some big moves on the week. Kafka was down 20% and PG Industries down 20%. So those are some of the standouts when it comes to the stock movements. We also had some company updates this week. Seedco reporting full year earnings for the 2013 period, and revenue down there 6%, and that as a result of operating expenses having increased 5%. Ultimately, that hit the bottom line, where profit after tax for Seedco was down 34% for the full year. So we've got Anymore up on the line once again. And Anymore, let's just take a look at those Seedco results. I mean, what are your thoughts for the company going forward, given that earnings have dropped back by a third?
Well, for Seedco, it's a company that is also closely related to government development. The country is in SADC as well as East Africa, but their product, which is seeds, is mainly taken up by government programs. That's the major customer for their product. So it's going to be driven largely by what is going to be happening in Zimbabwe and Malawi primarily. They are hoping that the elections that are going to take place in Zimbabwe will drive up some demand, as perhaps politicians try to get some sympathy from voters by providing feed. The same event is also expected in Malawi. We're expecting elections next year. So they're also upbeat that the government in Malawi will sort of drive up the demand for their product next year. But by and large, we still remain skeptical, especially in line with the climatic developments in the country. The late rains, especially in Zimbabwe, also contributed to the downward movement in their earnings this year. And going forward, the climatic conditions are also a major factor, of which we cannot really predict what the weather conditions will be.
And any man who can one day will make a lot of money. What about Nika's diamond in the financial space Anymore? I mean, what stood out for you from those numbers?
Well, for the insurance sector, it has been one of the sectors that has been positively growing in the country, especially on the life side. The short-term insurance also coming up. The insurance regulator this side actually upped the minimum capital regulations for the industry, and that development has been taken positively by Nikos, because it's one of the big players, but it has been affected by a lot of competition. There's currently about 23 players in the sector, so they think if the minimum capital requirements are increased, perhaps it will drive out some of those smaller entities that have been giving them a big run for their money. They are quite positive that the outlook is quite positive for them. The premiums have been increasing, and also their retention.
Mm-hmm. So some positive news on that front from the insurance space. And in the construction space, Lafarge, a trading update there. So we've got the 4-month trading update till April 2013, and you've got revenues at $21.7 million, which are flat right now. Does that concern you that they're not growing the top line? And then what are your thoughts on the profit margin sitting at 13% right now?
Well, for the construction sector, the major factor in that sector has been the liquidity situation in the country. You find, together with Tenor, also had been up this week, and they actually reported that their turnover was down 6%. For Lafarge, it's actually positive that they've managed to keep the turnover at the same level as last year. But that sector has been quite hard hit by the liquidity crunch in the country. But Lafarge is looking forward positively. They are actually happy that their profit margins at 13% are expected to increase to about 20%. That movement will come from improved product efficiency. They are going to be injecting about 3 million into their operations to try and improve the efficiencies. So they are actually expecting the margins to move from that side. The group is also managed to comply with the indigenization regulations, which is also quite a positive factor for them.
Yeah, Anymore, I mean, also going, proving their indigenization plan, and it wasn't seen to be, as kind of, as sensitive an issue as some of the other companies operating in Zimbabwe. I mean, do you think that this could be a model for how indigenization should work and is envisioned to work?
Well, there's a lot of debate. I think even in countries besides Zimbabwe on how the Africans can proceed with this issue of empowering locals. But in Zimbabwe, it has been quite a controversial topic. However, we still maintain that it's the law at the moment, and companies are being encouraged to comply with that law, because like we saw with the developments in the mining sector, where we saw some land being actually being taken without some compensation. But we are positive that with the movement that is taking place, especially with the new constitution in place and with the elections expected quite soon, we may see perhaps an improvement in how the implementation of that policy is going to be carried out going forward.